I think we should be able to be online now. Should be online. How can I check that? 1 second. Yeah, we are online.
Okay,
Yeah.
so hello everyone. Thanks for joining. Let's quickly begin. Uh, Hope you are doing well. I know we are going in with challenging times, and even I was sick a few days back, though I tested negative, but still, there is a bit of, I would say, sickness still recovering. So if I may not be able to speak that loud as I was maybe in previous sessions. So please bear with me. I'll try to speak as clear and as loud as possible. So thanks, for you for having time in this afternoon. And I know it's not easy considering all the situations around, but it's like a good refreshing uh, from what is happening, so that you feel a little bit different than usual news is. So at the same time, you will also kind of learn something, right? So it's like a little bit changing the mood, and in this process, learn something. Okay, so today we'll be talking. It is a 30-minute talk, so may not have lot many details, but we'll try to make as much as we can in this time. Feel free to reach out later as well in case you have any questions and we didn't get time to clarify that. So, a little bit about me in case folks who are hearing my name first time. Uh, I'm playing a role of IT manager in one of the company. Also, kind of hold little bit, I would say, tax called MVPs from Microsoft and C Corner. Uh, like blogging, though a little bit slower this time, these times, and yeah, like to speak as well on different meetups, conferences. At the same time, also like to, mentors people who kind of approach me for kind of some advice, career advice, or kind of, growth advice and things like that. Uh, Part of this, this what you call meetups group, along with Swami and few others, uh, on planning and how we can have sessions. And also, I lead this Sisakon Hyderabad chapter. Apart from technology, things that interest me are music, uh, like music, and also sometimes also sing. Though not a great singer, but try to attempt. Uh, Likes natural places, visiting waters, mountains, and all green around, and also spirituality. I do have a blog. You can look at yourself and the Twitter account. Without wasting more time, let's jump to the topic. So, what we're going to discuss today, we're going to discuss little bit OB on EF core. We do have, I think, focus session on EF core, so you will learn more. I think on session that we have in our agenda. We'll have a look quickly on this Dapper as well. What is a comparison in the context of developers, right? That what are the things that developers really care about these A versus B, and what are the considerations you really kind of need to make on choosing between choosing, either EF core or Dapper, uh, and tips to improve some performance. The EF core performance, we'll discuss some of them. And if time permits, of course, we can have some Q&A as well. In the process of comparing, I'll show you some snips as well, and so that you understand, and some can say benchmarking when we talk about comparison. So it's not just theoretical comparison, but a little bit on a how it looks like in reality as well. These are some other items that we are going to discuss. So let's start with first one. So EF core. Okay, EF core entity framework. By the way, EF, or in short, like EFT framework in short, we say EF is not a new thing, right? It's like, I think it's there from maybe decades and a half, right? It's not a new thing. Came very early. So, but what is EF core then? So, folks who followed .NET Core journey, now we are in 5. So, I think 1 came, 2 came, then I think 3 came, and then they did not have 4, then directly jumped to 5. So, folks who followed closely .NET Core journey in the last 3-4 years, so they might be knowing that Microsoft released basically, they call it .NET Core, they call it EF Core, and also they call it SV.NET Core. So there are 3, you can say, core families, coming. basically they're kind of grooming, or you can say improving, or version by versions parallelly. So with that, I think if you recall the prior to EF core days, I think it went. I think .NET 4.5 or something was there. I think now the zero point 0.7, if not wrong. .NET framework I'm talking about, and in parallel, we had Inti framework. We call it. I think the latest was came in 2013. It was EF7, I guess. EF6, sorry, EF6 was the latest. There was no core there. So the EF7 actually, when it started, instead of making EF7 never released. It not had a day of the life. But what happened that during that time, this discussion of .NET Core started, right? If you recall, you also might recall that there was talk of ASP.NET 5. That again never came actually in reality. It got renamed as a .NET like ASP.NET Core 1.0. So like that, EF 7.0 renamed as a .NET, sorry, EF Core 1.1. So like that, this renaming, and people who closely follow the Microsoft naming conventions, they might relate to how that works. So this is a little history on this EF Core, and now we are in EF Core 5.0. We'll talk quickly in a short while that why Microsoft still calls EF Core 5.0 and not EF 5.0. That we'll talk, but let's look into a little bit more on that. So as we know, or most of us know, maybe knowing that it's a full-fledged ORM tool, and thanks to this core thing that is open source due to this core philosophy that we have from Microsoft. It is an additional layer on top of AD.NET, right? It gives you a lot of flexibility, but it comes with a cost, and we'll discuss a little bit in a while as well how this translates into the reality, right? So it's always there is a trade-off between flexibility versus performance. It's not just limited to EF; it could be anywhere in basically development platforms, right? If you make your websites too thick, it may look very fancy, but you maybe it will be costing you in terms of performance, right? Instead, if there is a very simple HTML plain vanilla site, it will load, it will load very fast, but it may not look great. So there is always a fine balance one needs to make, that what makes more sense, and hence Inti-core EF core is not different, right? So here the thought is that you get a lot of features, including a nice feature called change tracking. It's tracking the changes that you made on the schema on different objects. It comes with, in case you try to understand a little bit behind the scene how it goes. So DB context, right? That is implementation. It has two things essentially. It has repository patterns and also unit of work pattern, right? Folks who like me, who kind of coded in this earlier days when we were writing everything ourselves, repository classes, unit of work implementation and things like that. Now it's like DB context is there. It already has the implementation, and behind out of the box it provides you change tracking features. But this feature is there, but is it really required all the time? Maybe, may not be, depends. So if it is really required, of course you should have it. But if not, you should switch off it. We'll talk more on that. What are different other tips and tricks that can help you make your query performance a little faster in case you're going with EF core, right? So one other use case and why one should go for EF core is it's easy to use, great for faster development, right? We'll talk about Dapper in a while, but at high level Dapper you need to write query a lot yourself. If you're not that good on SQL query, either your team or yourself, then it's not the great choice. So we'll touch upon those points, but EF core, to be specific, it is good. It will give you very good start, and it is great for like you want faster like turnaround time. it gives you a lot many inbuilt feature behind like it out of the box, so you can save a lot of time on that. Despite all the tweaking, I think now we have this 5.0, but every version they keep kind of tweaking it. Uh, in some scenarios, still it is a bit slower than plain A.NET because it is a additional layer on top of AD.NET. But think about it, it's like it's very common in general life as well. Like you keep adding layers, right? Layer will have its own cost. It will have its own overhead. The cost can be of network, cost can be of additional code, or anything. So it will give you flexibility, but it will also give you a little bit, or take away a little bit speed, right? So it's still in some scenario, if you compare with the plain A.NET, EF or even EF core will be little slower in some cases. Some cases in regular scenario, it is so small that you will not be able to figure it out. So you may choose either based on your requirement, but in some cases when you are on a complex applications with very performance, you can say benchmarking on a query, and the performance requirement is kind of superseding everything else. Then on those cases, you even care about milliseconds and everything. So in that cases, you really need to make a hard choice whether you want flexibility or you want speed. As I said, latest release is 5.0. There are some minor version as well. For simplicity, I just removed them. And the latest version, if you go to Microsoft site, you will find it came in Jan 21, so it's like not too late. Good question. I think I just kind of did you can say a little bit like food for thought, but now let's quickly discuss why they did not made they. If you guys again closely follow the Microsoft roadmaps or timelines on .NET 5 came in already on November, I guess, last year. 6 is, I think, going to plan on maybe November again this year. They removed the core, right? Why they're still keeping core in EF? Good question. Think about it, right? If you calculate what I just kind of brought in a few minutes back, that we already had EF 5, 6 before core journey started. So people do not confuse themselves. They still understand the difference of uh, Inti framework 5.0 and Inti framework core 5.0. So they're still retaining this core keyword. So that is the main reason. Okay. Uh, yeah. Just give me a moment, guys.
Just wait my laptop ASAP at 2:30 because it's not logging in mobile.
Okay. Sorry for bit trouble. I'll quickly resume it again. Okay. Fine. So let's quickly resume. So I think I was talking about why this they have, they means Microsoft here chose to still keep this core 5.0, and I hope that they will still carry with 6 as well, because we still had EF6 in the past. So to keep the little difference in the versioning, maybe from 7 you may just see that EF7, right? So that is the reason. Let's quickly jump to the Dapper now. What is Dapper? So Dapper is a basically again is again open source like EF core, but it is not a full-fledged ORM. Rather, it's a micro ORM they call it. It's pretty small. It is designed to initially that it will be as a mapper. It will help you to map DB results, database results, right? That comes from execution of the query into the C# object. If it is one, it's like in a generic way, a generics way rather, if you call it C#, right? So it's like integer. They will give you maybe some integer, right? If it is suppose list of some employee or whatever. So list of basically imply like that. So whatever the kind of result is coming from backend, you should be able to map it with the required, or you can have Poco classes or whatever, right? You can map the results into some kind of C# object. So that was the main purpose. Since it is like gives you bare minimum things in place by default. Of course, there are some additional library that have been developed. You might have seen Dapper, Lib, or blah blah. They are like extension of this, but the typical you can say plain vanilla Dapper is still have very minimal things by default, and it does the basic operation that is required to you, and hence it is faster because it doesn't care so many things. It has like very less abstraction, or or very thin layer between your application and database layer. So that makes it faster. As I kind of brought a little bit earlier, the context that when query performance is very important for you, in some cases, yeah, it does play a very maybe clients or maybe internal your stakeholders care very much on that, even why it is even a millisecond like slow than expected, you can say speed. Then of course you can think about Dapper because it can give you the best performance possibly in a given scenario. Of course, it comes with a cost. In terms of cost, when I say, I mean that your team members or you yourself should be well versed with writing complex SQL queries, because complex, why I say, because in real world scenario, you will end up writing complex queries, and if you are not very well versed with that, maybe Dappers you may not be able to take a good advantage of Dapper, because it may end up not even implementing, not be able to implement your requirements, because uh, in EF, in the case of EF, you may be able to write with link queries and everything, right? If team members are not well versed with SQL, or rather, let's say complex SQL, you can still live with it. But in this case, you yourself need to write queries, so it's a choice. Latest release version is I put here entire version 2.4.90, and it released late April this year, so it's not too late, maybe 20-30 days back. So it means that they are working continuously on newer features and making it more better. So that's what it tells. So this was at a high level what Dapper is. Let's comparison how it looks like in reality, right? So look at uh, the first example. So this is Dapper. If you notice a little bit difference, that Dapper uses this plain vanilla, this IDB connection interface. So that it gives you, like, if you recall your AD.NET days, remember SQL connection class, right? So it uses basically behind the scene, you can see AD.NET classes, so that it is, it is, you can say, it is very thin in that nature. It is not creating additional layers to compromise the speed. Okay. And then there is a SQL, the regular SQL is out there. You need to write SQL in Dapper yourself, as I said. And then the mapping thing comes in. If you look at here, product is so basically this, the result of this query is going to be sitting into the, you can say, this products, that is that kind of going to be kind of list of products. So this will have a list of all the, that product that the database will turn you into the products variable. This is how it's going to map, and of course the regular you know print statements. So if I were to do this in, let's say, EF core 3, there isn't much difference in 3 and 5, but it is on 3, by the way, this benchmarking. So these three, if you look at the syntax difference, right? So syntax, of course, became little more simpler, as as happens with Microsoft philosophy anyway. So they tried to make it simpler for you. They gave you context class, right? They said it is kind of combination of repository and network framework. So it gives you far more flexibility. You just write context, it will give you, okay, it has products, it will pull up anyway the all the table in terms of classes. And tool list, as we know, when tool list executes, the actual operations happens. So all the products will sit into the products variable, same variable, I mean, for simplicity purposes, and it will you can do that. If you want optimized basically version of EF code, if you want to take best, if the requirement is as I said, performance over flexibility, then you may go with as no tracking attribute. What it does is that it stops the tracking on that entity basically. So what tracking means that change tracking, right? You can relate to what was my previous value, what's my new value. So it keeps checking whatever uh, developers can relate to, like dirty object, right? Something model become dirty, so it keeps checks that okay, is it the state of my variable is still same when I kind of loaded it, or it got become dirty means somebody changed it. So like that, EF also behind the scene keeps doing that, and it comes with a cost, right? Any attribute you try to use, it comes with a cost, and the cost here is that basically it will slow down your execution, right? So if you do not need such requirement, you can go, you can put the entity name and put as no tracking. So it will stop doing that, and it will give you faster performance. We'll have benchmarking numbers in next slide, so you can see yourself. So it is a benchmarking. I have put the reference in the reference page. You can look at yourself later. So it is benchmarking done on two samples, so 2000 records and 2 lakhs record on three different, you can say, variations. So one is Dapper, and one is EF core, which change tracking, right? Default scenario, by default it comes with change tracking, and EF core when you have put like third one, dot as no tracking, right? Like that. So there are three samples, and you can look at yourself, right? That uh, Dapper is kind of still doing great job out of even better than EF core with no tracking. Although the difference of EF core no tracking and Dapper is very minimal, so hence I said that if you want to play, you can say best of both worlds, then try to use EF core with no tracking whenever you can do that, or wherever you can do that. In some cases, maybe you want to do the change tracking, so have your assessment done. What are different entities you care about having change tracking on them? If yes, then yeah, go ahead. Don't switch it off. But if not, try to switch it off so that it is not slowing your query execution. So this is what the benchmarking. Now you may say that okay, fine, but what if my company says me, my architects are like having a mandate that okay, no, we'll not use Dapper. We are Microsoft Shop, and we have no option to use Dapper. So in those cases, as I said, the best case is that EF core and switching it off, like change tracking wherever possible. What are the other things that you can look into? So as I said, the first thing, as no tracking, you also look into the benchmarking numbers, that it does make a difference, right? Some other regular tips that you otherwise might have heard or already known, but just a quick refresher. Uh, Try to move data heavy, or it's like a lot of data is coming and joins and manipulating data into the procedures instead of writing into the in memory, because I have seen myself actually that if you have a lot of data and you are doing a lot of joins in C sharp, it slows down your application speed very badly actually. I have seen myself. So the good advice is, if you can do that, if it is there is no restriction on using source procedures, so take advantage of source procedure. They're basically there for some purpose, and the purpose is like if you want to have a data heavy operations, uh, you know so apart from we all know, right? It's a classic thing that it does some compilation and it is faster, right? It also has some other benefits in terms of uh, this network cost, right? That goes from application to the database, so that also can be saved, back and forth network. So in turn, you get better performance uh, when you when you keep your data heavy operations in the procedure instead of in the application, right? And it also takes away a lot of complex code into the from application to the backend. So it also kind of simplifies your application. Try to add custom queries. So you know, if you want to have optimized queries, if you're good at writing queries, right? Take that. You should rely more on your you can say optimized queries rather than let EF create a one for me, right? In some cases, of course, you may running out of time and just want to become lazy with a purpose. Then yeah, you can let EF code do the job for you, but you know, be cognizant of the fact that it may not give you the best query possible. So it may give you maybe, you can say mediocre kind of queries. It will do the job, but it may not be as efficient as when you could have written yourself, provided you understand the basic query optimization techniques and you know that. So uh, other thing is like I have seen some people, despite they just need one record, they just kind of go ahead and start using list-based constructs, right? Uh, think about it. EF doesn't know that. It may create very ugly SQL. When I say ugly, I means very complex SQL, and uh, and basically it may again kind of may not give you best speed, right? So if you know for sure that this is, instead of saying some object, bracket zero, why you kind of, what are you not pulling the single record at first place, right? So you should avoid list based construct wherever possible. Of course, if there is a requirement, you should use it, but if not, then don't use the list based construct, right? Last one is use general best coding practices. EF is just one part of it, but if you're looking for comprehensive, robust application speed, there are a bunch of other things that you should be using, whether it's like parallel link or any task based operation. There is like use of use of background threads is more popularized. So there are that can be a separation on regular application kind of coding practices. But what I'm trying to say that EF is just one part of it. There are a bunch of other things that also kind of make sense. So you should not forget the other best coding practices or recommended coding practices yourself. So that's what I had, guys. I have added here reference which I myself referred and you know learned a little bit or revised a little bit. So thanks for your time, and for additional queries that you may have, you may put on this tweet, and I generally respond faster on this tweet if somebody can try to approach me. Okay. Thanks for your time. Swami, over to you.
Hey Prakash, thanks for the session. But for some reason, what happened is, like Terry, he pointed out, only one slide was appearing. We don't know, for some reason the slides were not changing. Even I didn't observe until Terry told this point. Uh, just now,
Really?
I observed
Okay.
it. Yeah, and
Okay.
we have one couple of questions.
Please.
Yeah, with one, all the three was from Krishna itself. So Krishna
Hmm.
was asking about if the performance is key focus. I mean, the I think the two questions are related. I just want to call out those two questions and
Hmm.
start answering. So, if
Uh-huh.
first question, if performance is key focus, what type of
Hmm.
ORM we should consider? And the second
Yeah.
question is, for example, I mean, I think that's an extension. For example, for B2C application, there
Hmm.
would be a huge transactions. Any advice? Um,
Yeah. So my
so,
advice
couple
will
of
be that.
things.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
my point is, it's the question itself is like a generic question. uh, I mean,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean, you go ahead and answer. I will add my points on top of that,
Sure, sure,
Prakash
sure,
sir. Please. Yeah.
sure. Sure. So yeah. So thanks, Krishna, for asking questions. So if, as I said, right, the performance is a key. You should basically try this Dapper. My recommendation would be Dapper, unless there is a constraint that you can't use it. So I have seen myself that Dapper really does good job in this B2C scenario as well. You should certainly give a try for Dapper. It does a pretty good job, but as I said, your team members should be kind of, I would say, knowledgeable enough to write some of the complex queries that maybe otherwise core can or EF can write for you, right? So that is a choice that you need to make. If you are confident about writing complex queries yourself, go ahead and use Dapper. It will do a great job actually. Hope that answers. So maybe Swami, you can add few things later if required yourself.
Yeah, I will add that. And one more thanks. Can I also request on the isolation level in EF core with DB isolation levels and its conflicts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was asking about the EF core isolation levels.
I don't think that EF code touches upon isolation labels because it is a SQL Server kind of features, right? So I think it does not control that isolation label that otherwise you will find. It's a SQL Server, you can say, admin feature. I think by default it is read committed. I think if I'm not wrong, and I think it is still you know I don't think that there is any change on that. So EF core I think doesn't control that isolation label that you set in SQL Server's side. And of course, isolation label also plays a role in terms of data consistency, and that is a separate discussion altogether.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh, so, so cool.
So we
I
can we
think,
can
yeah,
what we can do
I can.
is that we can share this deck later, and in case somebody could not join, they could not see, they can refer it, right? So that way, it will
Right.
be good for
Yeah,
them.
you push it to the
Okay.
GitHub repository. You
Sure,
push it to the
I can do
GitHub
that.
repository. Huh?
Yeah,
So, in
yeah,
the give me the link. I will post it so that
sure.
others can check. And Krishna, one point to add from my side is like you said, the performance is key focus, and what type of ORM should we consider? See, there are multiple things. You can do plain ADO, or you can do Dapper, and you can do EF core. And general practice is, if it is a small to mid kind of projects where the team itself is pretty good in writing the stored procedures, you guys can go ahead with the Dapper, because all the heavy lifting is being done from the SQL side. You can write the Dapper and you can benefit out of that. And if you have somewhere around mid to large enterprise kind of project, you can use EF core, but again, you have to do a proper analysis and performance testing or a feasibility study before taking that approach. Or you can fall back on the ADO.NET if it is mid to large enterprise application, and EF core is not performing up to the mark. There and see, the other side you can see is the advantage. Once you get the data in EF core, it transforms into the model objects, so you are getting benefited there. Suppose you are writing everything yourself using ADO.NET, and the transformation you're doing from the data to model and model to data, if that transformation code has not been written properly, then whatever the benefit you're getting using the ADO.NET will be lost in rewriting the transformation data. So you might lose it. So it's like we have to do the proper analysis and do one feasibility study. So how, what kind of queries you're bringing in? If you're using EF core, if you have set of tables and the uh, parent-child relationship or the primary key, foreign key, and everything is properly selected. And what is the use case? Are we going to display first set of managers records, 10 rows, and on click of a plus button you go and bring employees of that particular manager? So in these kind of cases, you can use the lazy loading features and other features of EF core with which you can benefit. And suppose you have a lot of complex queries, joining of 20 to 25 tables, it's pretty much expected. So in that case, you can use the stored procedures and then have the ADO.NET or Dapper or EF core. But again, we have to do a feasibility study, taking the complex scenario of our project and then do a benchmarking. Which one is faster? We can go ahead and choose with that. Sure. Uh, okay. So, Terry, the slides I have asked Prakash to share, we will definitely share that. So, we will continue with the second session now. Let me share my screen. Okay. Hey guys, good afternoon. So, this is the event which we are talking. Thanks for joining. Hope you all are safe and healthy. And the first session we did this introduction to EF Core and Dapper. The second session was on Entity Framework Core, which we will discuss uh, after this hands-on session purely, uh, where we go and create a simple bookstore application using SQL Server project, SQL Server, Web API, Dapper, and Blazor WASM. So we have multiple technologies which are used to create this application. So we'll start with this. The entire source code for this particular session will be under speaker series. I will uh, drop the location under speaker series inside this .NET Learners House. We will have this. We'll have this code. Let me push this version, whatever we have right now, so that we will know it's done. It's pushing the objects. Just give me one more minute. I thought that I checked in the code. Okay, this one. So you see this. This is the session. We are developing the bookstore app. And what are we going to use? We use SQL Server, .NET 5, Visual Studio or Visual Studio 2019, and a little bit of knowledge on HTML, CSS, C Sharp, Async Await, SQL basics, Blazor, WebAssembly basics, and a little bit of web development basics and web API. Okay, so the session will be purely hands-on. I generally don't prepare slides because all the experts, industry experts, they already created tons and tons of documentation. So I just directly go and refer that particular documentation. So I generally prepare this session hands-on. So I'm still a learner. Any queries, please post it. We'll discuss, and if I'm unable to answer it, I'll definitely come back and post my answers here. Please feel free to add a comment if that comment is not being addressed in here live session. Please post it here so that it will be an action item for me to come and address that. Okay, and I'm still a learner. Apologize if I do some mistake. So how does the look and feel look of our application, whatever we are going to build today? This is how the application looks, because we have multiple things to do, and we'll start with that slowly. And one more thing, let me check that services.msc, that SQL Server is running. One second. No, it's not running. So let me start that SQL Server. Okay. Now let me come back to this one. So this is how we build. To create this, we have to start with the SQL Server project, where we will add the stored procedures and the table definitions, and then we'll do deployment from the Visual Studio 2019 to our data store, and then we'll develop an web API, and quickly we'll develop this list page. So that way we are covering all the tiers of this application. Okay, the data store tier, the middle tier, and the presentation front end tier. So this can also we'll do if time permits, but at least we should be able to complete this till here. Okay, so as I was mentioning, what are we going to do? We'll create a SQL Server project. We'll create a table. We'll create stored procedures and deploy it to the database, and verify. Wow, it took a lot of time. And and then we'll verify that table and stored procedures exist in the data store. Then we'll go ahead and create the web API using .NET 5, SQL Server, and Dapper. We'll create books.data, that's for the data objects, and we'll create a web API, and we'll create a repository. It will be using the Dapper to interact with the SQL Server, and we'll verify that the API works properly with the Postman. And then we'll create the Blazor WebAssembly application and integrate with the web API. So I just wanted to take 1 minute of your time. Right now, I'm the only one who's holding the post. I do not have my co-organizer. So any questions which are coming in this YouTube channel, I will look at it at the last, because I have to switch between the windows. So I'm focusing more on this demo which I'm doing right now, and also I'm the organizer. So I'm playing the dual role now. So apologize if I'm answering your query little later. Okay. So let's start with this. Uh, so let's come here. Let me close all these things, and SQL Server database project. Okay, so this is the project which we will be using. So SQL Server database project. Okay, so let's start building those things. Let me go back to this one, and I have the starter files here, but let's start building one by one. So this is bookstore data. That's the SQL Server project which we are going to build it now. So let me start. This is the solution we have initially, and this contains some images, which is for the documentation which I'm using for the readme file. And here we don't have anything. Here we don't have anything. So we're starting with add a new project, and okay, see SQL Server database project, and click on next, and let's give the name. That's the name of the SQL Server project, and I'm going and storing that inside this source folder. Let's click on create. Let's come and check the source folder. The project is being created. That's pretty good. So let's go to this data store, and what is the name which we have given for the project? First, let's verify that. Books store data. Okay, remember books store data. Let's come back to this books store data. This is the one. I'm deleting that because we will deploy it again. So close the existing connection and delete that. That is gone. So we don't have uh, the bookstore database. It's not there. We'll build. Let's build that one. Okay. So the next thing what we have to do is we have to create the folders, and we have to place our objects, SQL objects, in respective location. That's like we are organizing it properly. Okay, like how do we organize our model classes, controllers, services? Similarly, we will organize in this fashion. DBO will create tables, and inside that I create tables, and inside that I create programmability, right? So the first thing what do we need is we need this books SQL. First we need to have the table. So first let's create this table. Let's go ahead and create this table. And sometimes this templates are taking longer time. We'll write the name of the table, books table. And the moment you write it, you will see a designer come the scripting. Both will be there. Like if you want to switch, you can switch. Suppose you are more of a scripting kind of guy, you can come and write this here. Or if you're more of a designer kind of guy, and it's a mix and match, we can do how do we like to do that, we can mix and match and do that. Okay, so right now we know that what we are to code it, so we are coming in and pasting that script here. The moment you paste the script, you see that designer getting modified. The moment you do something here, let's assume that I come here and I go and delete that particular row, you can see that that particular field has been removed from here, as well as its script is also getting affected. So like we have the script, now we know that we have the ID, picture URL, title, author, is active, ISBN code, and pages. And we have this as a primary key. This is a basic, simple table, not much of a complex thing. We have used identity, nothing fancy or nothing complex thing. It's just a basic thing. And after having that, we can try our first deployment. So what we can do is right mouse click on that and go to the properties. And once we go to the properties, so you can see that we are targeting SQL Server 16. What is the type of deployment it is where you want to do Microsoft SQL, Azure, or this one? So let's stick to SQL Server 16. Now we can go to this database settings. We can do all those additional database settings, whatever we can. But let's stick to the game plan. Initially, just I wanted to show that is possible. And here is the one which goes and tries to deploy this into V13. I don't want that to be in V13. I want that to be in V15. This is SQL Server version 15. I want that to be deployed here. So what I will do is I will quickly go and modify that setting here. I say edit, and okay, so I want to browse local and local DB sessions. Let's check that. Is that the one? Local DB sessions version 15. So I have that, and I click on OK. So you see that it updates the it will update this connection string automatically. Previously it was doing to version 13. Now it will go and deploy it to version 15. Okay, so with that configuration, let's try. Are we going to deploy? Will be able to deploy that or not? Let's see. So I just selected that. You see this, the query it has created in this location, as well as the DAC pack it has created in this location. We can go and check that, and then parallelly we can come here. So deployment has started. It just did the build, ensures that the syntax is correct, and it is able to compile all this into binary, and also it has created a beautiful SQL script for us. We will see that. Then it created the books data store one, and then it created the books. So we can come back over here and refresh that. You can come and see the bookstore data. So, oh, I didn't delete this one. Technically, I should have deleted this. No problem. Let's delete both now. There's no harm. So I will close this. Maybe I've deleted the other thing which I was experimenting. Never mind. We'll be able to create it. That's not a big deal. And now what we will do is let's go to this location. We'll spend quick 1 minute time. So you see this. This is the SQL file, and this is the DAC pack it has created. And we can quickly go and look into this. Will not dig deeper because the data store was existing. It suffixed with this underscore one, but here is that instances it is creating, and it does a lot of other jobs apart from that, and it goes and creates the data store and attaches this, and go and create the table. Okay, so that's technically it's doing a lot of things. So right now we don't have any databases. Let's do a refresh, and again come and do a redeploy. Again, I'll do click on that and start. So it's compiling. I'll have a glass of water in the meanwhile. Okay, cool. So we can see that it has again created that file. Let's go and let me check in and go this folder. Why didn't remove that data source? It's not the type. So let's do an alphabetical. Okay, let's do refresh. It didn't. It says it's compiled. Bookstore data. Okay, so that's not what we expect, because we told it to be the bookstore data. Oh, here. Okay, that's the problem. Go this one, and what I do is come back here and select this. Let's do a restore to default. Let's save that and let me go. Yeah, this is the name it should be. Bookstore books store data. That's perfect. So it has created the proper way. Or other method, what I generally do is I can come in here and get into the SQL Server project, and once again, okay. So right now it should fix this. That was the name, whatever the name which comes here as part of the initial catalog, that will be the name with which it goes and deploys. So the initially when we took the name, because as the data store was already existing, so it added _1. Now it should not, because right now we fixed the name inside that, so it should not create any problem. It should create with the name what we want. So it should create books store data db. That's what it should go ahead and create. We'll come and do a refresh and see whether it is creating. Okay, it updated. Let me come in here and do a refresh. See that it has created. Now we can come and expand that to see the objects, what objects we have. And we are seeing that we have this bookstore. Okay, perfect. So we are seeing that we have the bookstore. At this point of time, we don't have any records, but we have the bookstore. That's good news. So next thing what we will do is, as we already saw the things, at least we know the knowledge. How is that it is going and working. Now let's go ahead and bump up a little bit faster. I will go into the programmability. I'll copy all the stored procedures which I have written and come back to our solution, and I will quickly drop it over here so that we'll save a lot of time. If not, it takes hours together for us to complete this one topic. So I'll come in here, right mouse click on this and add existing item, and I'm going to add all the stored procedure. So guys, remember you need to go to that properties, project properties and the debug, and here is where you have to customize that connection string, right? So now that we have added this programmability, this is the simple stored procedure to add the book, and this is a simple stored procedure to delete a book, and this is get all books and get book by id, update book. So these are simple stored procedures. So before we deploying, let's go and check this programmability section and the stored procedures part. If you get into that, we will not be able to see anything because we don't have anything there. So now that what we can do is we can again come back and do a redeploy, because this is how real time we do it, isn't it? We don't do everything on the same day. One day we will add the table, and the next day we'll go and update the stored procedure, and then again we update the stored procedure. So any changes we do as part of this project, it will do an incremental the state, whatever is the state of the files here, the source files here, that state will get updated, whether you're removing a stored procedure or adding a stored procedure or removing a column, modifying a column, whatever you do, that will be generating this SQL and the DAC pack, and then gets deployed. So if I come in here and do a refresh, I see this, all the stored procedures getting created here. See that? So everything is getting created. So that's our first step, what we achieved now. So we were able to create table, stored procedure, deploy the database, and verify that the table and stored procedure exist. That's pretty good. Now what we have to do is, now we need to go and update the we need to create a web API first. That's the thing. So what I'll do is I'll come back and minimize this. I don't need it at this point of time. I will close this and keep it. Now that whatever we needed, we have it for this. So what we will do is let's start creating the web API. I don't need this window. So let me close all the windows, whatever I don't need it. I will close this one so that I have to deal with less number of moving pieces. So let me close this. We have successfully created the DAC pack and that project, and we have installed it. So let's go ahead and create the web API now. So books web API, that's what we will be creating now. So right mouse click, add new project. So we are going to create ASP.NET Core Web API. Next, and that's the name I'm giving. And the location will be the source folder. And I click on next. And here we are using .NET 5, no authentication. We are using HTTPS. At this point of time, I'm not selecting the enable Docker, and we have Open API enabled. So let's go and click on create, and it will create this web API project. So let that create, because now the creation takes little time. So at the same time, what we will do is we'll just create uh, all the things what is needed. We'll create this data store project also. This is just a library. Actually, I didn't move the things in different layers, but at least couple of layers I'm using it. But technically, I should have moved to the n layer one. So that's a data. It will hold the data objects. So I just create it. So these two goes hand in hand, API and its data store project. We'll come and fix that, and let's see what's there in. Let's do a startup project, and let's add the dependency, project dependency, and we'll select the this data. That's what we need it. Okay, so let's come here in this app settings. So we need to update the app settings to showcase this, the connection strings. So I'm adding the connection string over here. So it's a connection strings, SQL Server connection string, and it is pointing to local DB session and bookstore data. That's our connection string. The first thing what we will do is we'll update the connection string. And after updating the connection string, we'll create the settings data. There are multiple ways to handle. This is one of the way we are handling. Okay, so before that, what we will do is let's create the data object first. So let's come to this data project. We have this books.cs. Let's go and create this books.cs here. Okay, that's done. And I'm going to copy this and paste it over here. The books entity, whatever we are using. So we have ID, picture URL. You can see this here inside the table. Whatever we had, those columns, all those columns will be here. Let me go and so we have ID, picture URL, title, author, is active, ISBN page, ISBN, and pages. So all those columns we have mapped it here in this data project. So that's good thing. And the next thing what we will do is we'll go ahead and create the settings .cs. And what is the use of this settings .cs? That settings.cs has got some of the configuration, like the SQL Server configuration, this connection information. How do you pass? Right now we have this eye configuration. I can inject this eye configuration in wherever I want it, and I can go and grab this information, the connection string. Instead, some of the thought process is, suppose if we have 5 6 configuration items, we can bundle everything in this class and inject this class as a dependency and pass it wherever you need it. So different ways to handle it. This is one of the way we are handling it. So we'll go ahead and create this data. It all depends upon the use case, guys. So I go ahead and create another folder. I'm calling, oh god, this is called data, and we will have a class, and that class file name is settings data. The class file name is settings data. Cool. So what do we do is, now we'll come and copy all these things and paste it over here. It has got one property, and we are doing this constructor. The string is coming, and we are returning that we are assigning it to this, and all we do is we're exposing this property SQL Server connection string, so that we will grab it from outside. We'll see that how we are hooking it up. Okay, that's the first thing we do it. And the next thing what we will do is we will go ahead and execute this in multiple ways, and then we will check a couple of things. So I'll switch it to API. So this is you're executing using the IIS Express. You're not executing through Kestrel. You're executing through IIS Express. We'll see that in a moment. It's taking a little bit of time to compile. So see this, by default, it will come and hit the Swagger endpoint. So we will see that who is defining this. So right now we have that weather forecast, it will come here. And you see this IIS Express is here. And the other way to do is we will switch to Books API and we'll execute this. When we switch to Books API, this is where it is executing the Kestrel. You will see an additional command or a console, a terminal appears, and you see this one. So here the port number is 5001. There the port was little different. So this is the Kestrel. So we saw the two modes of executing a web API, and you have Docker and other things. So who is defining this? Where is this configuration coming from? So you have to go into this properties and click on this launch setting. So here the launch URL is Swagger. So it's telling, we are defining that once you launch, the first thing I want to see is Swagger, and that's an IIS. It's all different profiles. And if you see that Books API, that is using the Kestrel. And again, we said that the launch URL is Swagger. So here in this settings.json, you will define that what all the ports we should use and what should be the launch URL. What is the first endpoint you want to go and hit that? Okay. That being said, we are in a pretty good shape to go and continue our journey. What we will do is we'll create a iBook repository. So I'll go ahead and create this interface inside this. I'll go ahead and create. Technically, I should go to new item and select interface and all those things, but I do this way also. Okay, iBook repository, and the next thing is I do book repository. Cool. So now let's see, come back over here and grab this repository. This interface, let's define these methods. And I go and delete the unwanted things and add. We already had the reference of that project. Now we are getting it. So I'll remove the unwanted usings so that we have less number of lines to deal with. So it's that our interface. So add book, get all books, get book by ID. So let's go to this book repository, and I can do a copy of this and come back and paste it over here because we have dealing with this one. Okay. So now we need the Dapper, these two nuggets. So we can come here, copy these two, and come back to this API. Double click this API project. This is one of the way, guys. This is not the only way to do it. Other ways we can go ahead and execute it from this package manager console, or you can right mouse click manage NuGet package. There are multiple ways to do. This is the way which I generally do it. That's my personal choice, but it's not the suggested way. Suggested way is come here, go to the manage NuGet package and religiously check that what is that which is available and go grab that, right? So I do this way. That's my personal choice. So I want you guys to go religiously check that, right? So coming back to here, we see that we are having this repository which is implementing this interface, and we are injecting this settings data. It's coming here, and we are taking this configuration into this piece, and that object dot SQL Server connection string. Actually, this is SQL Server connection string. It's not connection. It is a little bit confusing. Rename connection. Okay. No, it makes sense. Even if someone else is reading, they know that okay, it's SQL Server connection string. It's not the connection. Right. So we open this SQL connection, and we'll pass the parameters, and we'll execute the stored procedure. So that's for the add book. And similarly, get all books. We are retrieving all the books. We are invoking this stored procedure, and get book by ID. We again open this SQL connection. We invoke this stored procedure, and we pass the parameters. We just need the ID which we are passing it. So at this point of time, we have this. So are we done? No, we are far from done. So another thing is we don't need this weather forecast. I will go ahead and delete that. And we don't need this controller. I will go ahead and delete that controller also. We'll create the controller what we need it. So that way it is pretty clean. Whatever we want, we'll focus only on that piece. So I'll go and right mouse click on that and go and add a controller. And that we will have the API controllers, and I'll take this empty controller, and let's give the name of this books controller. Let's add this one. Perfect. It has added this, and the first thing is we are having couple of dependencies. We'll come here. So any red squigglies will handle that. Don't worry. I will grab this. I will grab this repository. Both has come. Now we have to create the constructor. How do you create constructor? Now we do that CTOR, tab it, and again we'll come and add and oh, that's a lot of work. So Visual Studio is our best friend. He's helping us. So all you do is Alt Enter. Okay. Or the shortest way is to do this. Here it shows this generate constructor, or place the cursor and Alt Enter, and you see the same menu technically. Generate and add null checks. Click on OK. Now it's generating the beautiful constructor for us without even we sweating anything. So that's one good point. So we got that. And the next thing is we have this. So we need to have these three methods. Let me grab all these three methods and paste it here. So, and I'm removing that unused using. So now any file we go here, we will have very much clarity that what all the usings which we are using. There are no unused things anywhere. So it's a clean and neat. See, the less number of lines we have to deal, the more happiness we will have in our life. So more number of lines we have to deal with, the happiness in our life will go little low. So it's like that. It's my own way to present it, but having less number of lines or exact number of lines, whatever we need it, that's what we have to focus on. So we have this one more dependency. Let's get it. And this HTTP status code. Right. So see this. We have this add book, and here is this books repository which is coming in here, and it's 125%. Okay, we are invoking the book repository, and we are saying that configure await. This is async method, and similarly we are retrieving all books, and we are getting the book by ID. So are we good? No, we are not yet done. So what did I do? I'm sorry. Okay, that's a good point. Let's go and check that and then come back. Yes, we were able to do that. Let's execute this. Let's learn it in hard way. Let's go. Let's get an error, then we'll learn from there. So we'll come to this Swagger, and it says it shows the methods, and it has got the books model also, whatever the model we have it. And I click on this get books. I am telling it that I want to try, and I click on execute, and it goes and it says that books API data book repository. It's unable to resolve the service in books controller. So let's come and check that what is that we are missing in this books controller. So we go to the top, and here we are injecting two things. One is the books repository, one is the logger. So some of the dependencies which comes out of the box, so those will be some dependencies. Some dependencies will be application dependencies which we have to explicitly configure that, so which we didn't do that till now. So if you come here, this is the configuration block where we should do this configuration, and let's see in depth how this dependency injection gets created. Okay, so just give me 1 minute time. Let me do the cleanup. For some reason I hate having this unused usings, so it troubles me a lot. I don't know why. So this looks very neat. Okay, I have two usings and I'm using both. And if I come back to startup, you see this, I'm having this many. I'm not at all using those unnecessarily. I feel trouble. Now it looks okay. These 6 dependencies are the using statements. I'm using it. It looks very nice for me to have these kind of things. Okay. That being said, let's do this. Will be used for cars policy. Let's give this name. I'm sorry. Let's give this name, and also let me take this line to the top. Okay, we have those two. And the first thing is we will add cars so that we will be able to do the integration from the SPA application. In our case, we are doing using this Blazor WASM SPA and books API V1. That's pretty good. After that, we have couple of dependencies we need to add. Here we need to add the SQL Server and the books repository, because the settings data we discussed initially. Settings data, what we are doing is we are using this configuration. Okay, we are going to configuration and saying that get connection string. We are giving this SQL Server. So technically, what it is doing is it comes here and it gives this one, and then that we are giving to the settings data constructor, because that's what it was expecting. Settings constructor was expecting a string that we are passing it here. We are creating this object, and loading it as a singleton. So anywhere we need the dependency, we can inject that. So where are we injecting it? We are injecting that here in this. So that is the reason whatever the dependency which is getting injected, we are happily going and using this SQL Server connection string. Now, the second thing is book repository, because this controller is using the book repository as a dependency. So now let's see that how this dependency injection is getting created. This container, how is this container getting created? Let's see. It will take 5 to 10 minutes time. Let's take time, but let's understand it properly. Here I'll put one debugger, and then here I'll put one debugger, and then inside the settings data. Settings data is here. I'll put one debugger. So if you see the chain, the books controller has got a dependency on iBook repository. Logger is a default the dependency which is coming out of the box. And now I go to book repository. It depends upon the settings data. Then we'll come to the settings data. Setting data doesn't have any dependencies. It has got a constructor parameter, but it is not having the dependency injection. Please understand that. So the chain is, this is the first guy. He depends upon the book repository, and book repository depends upon the settings. Settings doesn't depend upon anything. So what this framework will do, it first constructs, it comes here, and to construct this, it has got dependency, and it will check that, okay, I have the logger, I can give you, but I don't have book repository. Then it goes and tries constructing the book repository, and he'll say that, okay, I have, you need settings data, I have it, I'm going to give you. Then it will go to create this, it has to give the settings data. Then it goes to the settings data, and it sees that, okay, you have the constructor parameter, here you go the parameter, and first let's construct you, and then we'll go in the reverse order. Let's see that. It takes time, but let's spend time, whatever it takes, 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Let's take that. So see this. If you come in here, hey guys, I will periodically check the message, because when I'm showing this, sometimes my this one the voice will go. Okay, let's see here. So we have the count of 79. So there are 79 dependencies in these services, and that 79 dependencies, you can come and view this here. If you expand this view, you see this. One of that is the iLogger. So this is the one which comes out of the box. Okay, now that we are adding the cars policy, so it was 79. Now it was 79, now it is 82. It will be 82. One second, one second. Okay, so now it is 82. So as and when we go and add these dependencies, you can see the count. So see the previous count. Previous count is 181. Now it comes and adds this. That object is there. Now it has created, because we passed whatever it is needed. And see this here. If you go and expand, it is 183 dependencies. And we can expand this view. And you can scroll to the bottom. You should be able to see that the application, there are a lot of dependencies which are coming out of the box, and few dependencies which we added, like cars and add controllers and other things. Now here you have this settings data and iBook repository. So this guy, whoever is this container, the services is the container which holds all these dependencies. Now you will come here. Now once you come here, we have loaded all our dependencies. It's like your bank account and your ATM card. So your bank account is like a services container where you deposit the money, and whenever you want any of the dependencies, it's like you take your ATM card and go to the ATM, swipe, the money comes out. That means you already deposited it. If you don't have money deposited in your account and you swipe the card, you'll get a declined transaction. Previously we got a declined transaction because we didn't load these inside the dependencies, but we were trying to extract it, and we got the error. Now what's happening is, let's go and try this. Now we'll click on execute. Now you see this, as I told, it will not stop anywhere here, because this has already been constructed while loading itself. We have seen that this has been already constructed, and that has been loaded as a singleton. So it comes to this one. See, this object is already loaded with this, but here this will be null. So now we go and inject that here in this configuration. Now the configuration is loaded. Now it will come to book repository. Now see this the controller, the book repository is null, but the book repository here, which is already loaded. Now I come here and I will load this book repository. Now the book repository is there. Now it will go and get us the data. Technically we don't have any rows in the data store. Okay, so the connection string, yeah, that's a connection string. Why it will not open that? We have this databases, refresh. Okay, we already have that, and we're using the same connection string what we used to use it. Yes, nothing new. 1 second, let's give it a shot again. Oh, stop this, close it once again, open that. Books data store, that's books data store. Go to the properties. Perfect, everything is here. So let's open this. Just give it a minute, it's loading this. And alternatively, what we can do is we can come to this connection strings. There is a beautiful site which gives all the connection string over here. See this, every SQL connection, you'll get it here. So standard connection, local DB, everything, whatever you need it, you will have this, all the connection strings here. Like you go to this SQL Server connection strings, everything, you will have it over here. Okay, you can validate that. Okay, close all. Let's check. Let's add that here. Browse local DB sessions. Let's authenticate that. So here you go, we have that. Let's come in here. Let's verify the data store. And we have the books item and we have the books table. Let's verify that everything exists before we do a try. We don't want another failure. Right, we have everything, whatever we need. Cool. So let's go and give that a shot. Another shot. So we have the swagger, and let's come and hit this. Click on a try and click. What? Why is that? What's wrong? Book status store. Oh, bookstore data. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I changed the data store name. I didn't realize that. Unnecessarily, we had to close and open the Visual Studio. We lost 2-3 minutes, but that should be fine. It's a lesson. So we see that it will go and hit, and at this point of time, what it says, yeah, we are throwing 404 because there are no records. We are throwing 404. That means you come to the books control, and when we go and get all, and if there are any books, we are sending the books. If not, we are sending books not found. That's expected. Okay, let's go and try this out. So picture URL, and the picture URL will be like this. I'll show you. I want to show that as part of this one. The pictures will be here under www, under images, under books, and here you'll have this. Okay, and let's see one more point. Come to the source and go to the scripts, and here I should have had this insert script. So this is what we have to give. It should be like this: CSS, images, books, and any one of the book. Okay, so I want, let me take this, copy this, come back to the Swagger, and that's a picture URL, and title is C sharp, and author is Mithun Nair, and his active is true. What is his ISBN code? A101, which has got 101 pages, right? So let me click on execute. So it has executed it, and it says that it has inserted this row. So let's come back and execute this now. Now you see that thus that particular record has been nicely retrieved. Now we can have the ID. We can come back and check this get by ID, and let's try that. And let's give ID to which doesn't exist. Click on that. It says that not found, and we can come back here and do a execute. You see that Mithun Nair's record is already there, and what we will do is we will go and check for that first ID. Now click on execute. Now it goes and gives the record. So what we will do is quickly we'll come back here and insert few other rows. So that way we will speed up the time, and we'll have time to go for the second, the other demo, Blazor integration. Okay, that was the first book, and the second, this is I have 10 books. Java, this is George Reddy. Right, so that's George Reddy, and Vignesh Iyer. It's the book number 5, and he teaches Python. And book number 3 on Azure Functions. That's Scott Rudy. Oh, I forgot to change the ISBN, but that should be fine. And oh shit, that I have to change it. This is 7, and this is Azure VMs, and this is by Mohammed Azim. Okay, let's see how many records do we have. We have decent 5 records. I have to change this one. Okay, I have to change that one to something else. We have, let me update that book directly. I'll go and update it from here instead of executing the update command. Okay, right mouse click on this, edit 200 rows. Now it's taking longer time. Okay, so let's do, we have 1 8 2 5 10, all are unique. Okay, good. So we have pretty good thing, and we have A, and this one, let's make it B, that is C, this is D, and this will make it to E. And let's change the numbers. This is 202, 303, 404, 505. So we have at least a unique set of rows. So we can come back over here and quickly execute this, and we see that all the rows, Mithun Nayars, George, Vignesh, Scott Rudy, and Muhammad Azim. So we have all those rows. Perfect. So now that we have built the web API, now let's go to the next phase. We will integrate it. So as we have lesser time, what I will do is I will copy the entire project and drop it here. I'll directly include the project. That way it will be faster. We will see the end-to-end demo, and we'll be able to see that end-to-end demo with all those things. Okay, just give me a minute. I'm copying that. It's going to take that whatever is here. We'll see. Okay, perfect. Okay, it's done. So what we do is we'll integrate this one. I mean, you will get the entire source code, whatever we are doing at this point of time. The repository, I will post it in a moment. Come in here, web, and this is the one. And let's come back here. This is the repository. The entire source code will be here, just in case you guys need. Please feel free to grab the source code and start uh, practicing it. Okay, we have this, and a couple of key things here. Let me make this as a starter project. I made that as the starter project. Couple of points. Let's see that. So we have images here, those books images, and we have this loader, and here we have the app CSS, which we have used for the styling, and here is that dependency injection. It loads this HTTP client as a HTTP client has been loaded, dependency injected already. We are creating another service file here, which will go talk to the web API, and that we are loading it here. So here in this service, what we are doing is we are making that HTTP client call. We are doing that get. Okay. So we have to bring the dependency of the project dependencies. Right mouse click and add the project dependencies and books data. Now this is one of the reason why we moved this object to a separate layer, because API is also using and web UI is also using. So that's one of the advantage. So here we are invoking that. And the other thing I want to highlight is I want to show this the pages. If you come to the pages, there's a razor components. You can have the razor similarly what we used to have in the ASP.NET web forms world, where you have this ASPX web forms, that's for the HTML markup, and the ASPX dot CS, that's for the C sharp or the backend code. So similarly you will have that. So what I will do is I will quickly go ahead and rebuild the solution, ensure that the solution is building without any issues. We'll see that. Let's wait on it a moment. Okay, perfect. For everything got built. So now what I will do is I will come here, right mouse click on this and go and open in terminal. I mean, I can start multi projects. I'm some of the things are my personal choice. I will come and do .NET run. Okay, I'm executing the web API here in this developer PowerShell console, and then I'm executing that Blazor WASM from the Visual Studio. I made it as a startup project, so it's executing it, and we see that it's coming in. It takes a little bit time to. Let's inspect this. You can come and see. I will move this outside. Let's focus preserve logs. And now see this, we go to fetch data. So it made the call. It brought the data. You can see it here. And now I go click on that books list. It is spinning and it goes and ooh. One second. What is that? It is stopping us. Ooh, the cars. I think I forgot to use it. I added it, but I forgot to use it. I remember. Okay. We have added the cars here, but we didn't use the cars here. That was a problem. I go back here and come to the startup. This part we configured, but this part is what I forgot. I remember that. So it sees development, then HTTPS, routing authorization. The next thing is just before the use endpoints, we have to place that. That was my mistake. I apologize for that. Where's that developer PowerShell? Yeah, it's still running. So let's go there and let's do the inspect. Let's come to the network and preserve logs is there. You see that it is downloading and it brings in all this Blazor based assembly, and other DLLs will also come, but it comes only for the first time. We already did it, so we'll not be able to see that. Now let's go and click on the books here. Why it is course again? Oh, I have to start that. This is already started, isn't it? I have to stop and start it again to take that into effect. So we've added this, but it will not uh, come into effect until we restart the server. Okay, the server has been restarted. Perfect. Now you'll see that it spins and brings the content. Okay. So why is that? Why the images are not being loaded? You got the books. I think it's unable to find the path. Where is that? One second. Let's see that in a moment. I'll close this session. Next speaker is waiting. I don't want to eat up her time. 1 minute. We'll check that. Where's the book list? Should be somewhere here. That's a picture URL, and we have this properly. Images, books, book 8. Is there any spelling mistake? Dub dub dub. Oh God, it's not CSS. It's directly images. That's my mistake. I'm really sorry, guys. Niveda, 1 minute. I'll give you. I just want to show this piece. I'm sorry. I'm eating up your time. She was kind enough. She said no problem. Okay, cool. Let's go. That's a model I previously, when in my previous experiment, I placed the images under CSS. Now I moved it under images directly. So you see that all the images are appearing. Ah, I did some mistake. I can fix it now. Okay, there is no dot. Now let's refresh it. Now you see that. So it's coming. Namitun Nair, George Reddy, Vignesh Iyer, Scott Rudy, Muhammad Azim. All this information is coming. So it's pretty simple. Like we have to do a little bit of experimentation, come performance testing, come feasibility study, and then we will be able to do that. And I really appreciate your time for this Saturday, and hope you guys have learned something new. And I will check in my code. Please feel free to go grab it from the repository. A repository link I've already given. And if you have any queries, please feel free to post it inside the event. And we, three of speakers, will definitely chase it. And let me welcome our next speaker, Niveda. And I'm really sorry, Niveda. I ate up your time. Apologize for that. It's all
It's okay,
yours.
no problem.
Could you please share your screen?
Yeah, 1 second. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. I will jump out of the. I mean, I'll come out of the screen, so it's all
Okay.
yours.
Okay,
But
thank you so
thanks so
much.
much.
So, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nivetha Lakshmanan. I am working as a software engineer in OMI, One Mine India. And Okay, hope everybody is safe and healthy at home. Please be safe. And okay, now I'm gonna talk about Entity Framework Core, and we'll see some of the demos, few demos, and I'll tell you like how to configure Entity Framework and how to get started with that. Okay, so today's agenda is we'll see an overview on EF core, the basic EF core 101, and then the steps to get started with EF core is like what are all the things that you need to follow, like getting a new get package and configuring the database context, and so and so. And we'll see three demos today. One is on diagnostics, like where and all you need to add log to it, you can do that. So we can see that logging part in demo one, and in demo 2 we'll see a relationship like two tables having many to many relationships. So for we can see that as well. And demo 3 is on table per hierarchy and table per type. So that one I'll explain it when it goes on. Okay, so that is what the agenda is for today. So before we get into entity framework or like steps to get started, we'll see what it is and what are all the stuffs are there already in EF. Okay. So entity framework is nothing but an ORM. ORM is object relational mapper. So in that name itself, it says it is the object is mapping with the relational databases or the some databases. So our C sharp object will be integrated with the database columns. Okay, so this is how the ORM maps. Okay, so the next thing is the CF core supports many databases like SQL servers, Azure SQL servers, and SQLite, Cosmos DB, and many other databases. Okay, the next thing is so we are like we add data to the database and we update data. So these things are done by writing some of the queries, right? So in SQL we write select star from table name is the query to get the data, right? But in your C sharp project, you will write a query. You can write it through your link query, right? Or through your store procedure, or through your ADO.NET you can connect. But in entity framework we use a link query, which means language integrated query, which will help us to retrieve the data from the databases. So I am just giving the overview, like what are all things I have been used in the demo, so that it would be useful for you guys to follow. So next thing is we have one pattern called unit of work. So unit of work pattern will actually help us to track changes. Okay, so tracking changes in sense of for example, there is a transaction to the database where the transaction consists of an update statement and a select statement, something like that. Okay, so what this unit of work does is it tracks both the operations that are done by that particular transaction. For example, if the select statement fails by, for example, you have sent some columns which are not there in the DB, which are not there in that particular table. So what it will throw us some error, right? So this columns is not available. So at that time, and in that particular transaction, update will not get updated. So update statement will not run. Okay, it will roll back and go to the previous it was. Okay, so kind of is like any one of the operation in that particular transaction gets failed, it gets rolled back. That is what this unit of work pattern does. Okay, so we say like it tracks changes, right? What are all things that it does from the the steps to follow, right? Steps to follow for that particular pattern is it will initially create an instance. Okay, for DB context, so we'll be having one DB context and we have to create an instance to that DB so that we can call the database, right? So initially what this unit of work does is like it creates an instance. Once the instance is created, it checks the query and gets the entity instances. For example, there are two tables, user and post. For example, for both the table we are getting the select query. Then for two entity, for it will track both the tables and instances, and and it checks for the changes. Okay, so these tracked entities will have the changes made, and once we call the save changes or saved changes async method, this EF core understands that there is a change to that particular table, and it detects and then it writes them to the database. So once this save changes method has come, that's where the database actually gets updated. Okay, gets updated or gets the data. Okay, so this is where this EF code detects the changes and writes them to the database. And finally we have to destroy the DB context instance, right? So it will itself destroy the DB context instance. Okay, so it does five things. One is it creates the instance, track the instances and changes made. Once the changes are tracked, it will call the save changes method, which the EF core understands and tells the DB that I am updating this. Okay, and it will update the database. And once all the operation is done, the instance will be destroyed. Okay, so this is how the unit of work pattern works. And the next is, okay, so we have seen what an EF core is, like basic things, and how this unit of work pattern works, and then the NuGet package. So before we get into any sort of a thing, we need to know whether there is a NuGet package for that, so that we can use it in our application. So same way, this entity framework core has shipped with NuGet packages. So for this you need to have uh, three main things. So if your application is mm, mapped with any database, then you need to have that particular database NuGet package. For example, I've given SQL Server over here, and there are so many database providers. You can go check out in the Microsoft Docs. They have given the SQLites, Cosmos DB, and many other database providers and the corresponding NuGets to it. Okay, so if you are connecting it, I have connected the demo with SQL Server, so I have given the example as well. And tools. So for example, we will be using a PowerShell tool for migration purpose and all. We use the PowerShell tool. So in order to use PowerShell tool in Package Manager console, you need this tooling, so that NuGet package is also given here. And the next thing is, for example, you are connecting the C# with the database, like we are connecting cross platform. It is like a cross platform, right? So for that you need to have your design NuGet package as well. So these three are very important, uh, apart from the entity framework course NuGet package. Okay, so once you install all these, you are ready to go into the code actually. So we'll see what is a POCO. It is plain old C# object, where this is just a class file with the properties. And if you want, you can mention your requirements as the data annotations. So here I have three properties. One is the ID. So by default, any table will understand that ID is the primary key. If even if you wanted to mention it here, you can mention it like key as well. Okay, the next thing is, I have mentioned this first name as required, since I don't want this field to be null in the database, so I have just given it as required. And I want the string length to be 1 to 100. If the length exceeds, then I'll throw an error message as well. Okay, so these two are the simple things. Like these are all the validations for that particular property. For this you can use the NuGet data annotations. You can use the library data annotations. And the third thing is, I just wanted to have a relationship with the other table. Then I need to give it in virtual. I'm just creating that user one to many relationship with the post table. So if you wanted to give it or set up the foreign key or the relationship, then you need to give it like this. Okay, so these are all the basic things, like the basic class file with the properties. That's it. Okay, so next is, so we have seen two steps now. So first is installing your NuGet packages, and next is your class file with properties. If you want, you can have your validations as well. The next thing I wanted to say is we use DB context lifetime, like we give it scoped, singleton, and transient. So what is DB context lifetime is like this. The instance will be created, right? So that when the instance is created, and the lifetime is still when the instances get destroyed. Okay, so I have told you, like unit of work pattern is from creating the instance to destroying the event. That that particular period, that particular lifetime is DB context lifetime. And we have three commonly used lifetime services are scoped, transient, and singleton. Okay, so if you wanted to have the same instance for particular scope, then we'll go for scoped. Okay, if you want each and every controller to be independent to each other and they don't want to commonly use a same instance, then we go for transient. Okay, every time every controller and every service will create a new instance. Okay, and singleton is only one instance will be created, and this will be used all the time. Okay, so whenever there is an object, whenever there is a service calling, every time that particular instance creates and destroys. Okay, so these are all the three lifetime services. If you want, like based on your application, you can use any one of these. Okay, so it depends on your application and your requirement. So this is what the DB context lifetime is. And so next is our DB context. Like we should have some database context where we'll tell them that these are all the table names that we want. Like, so to tell that these are all the tables, and to establish a connection, we will be having this database context. So this will inherit the DB context. This is the Microsoft Entity Core NuGet packages class file. And I'm inheriting that, and I'm having one public constructor, and I'm exposing this constructor to my class files. Okay, so I'll show you like how to use this in our class files, and how to pass our connection string to it, and how to access this particular file in the demo. I'll show you. And I have mentioned my table over here. So my table name is users, and the class name is user. Okay, if you want, you can have it many other tables as well here. Okay, so this is how the database context file looks like. You can have many things. You can have on config method. You can override any methods that you wanted it from DB context. Okay, so this is a simple database context file. So initially you can create this file, have a chance to get into it and try it something. Okay, so next is like now we have three things, right? We have our NuGet package, we have a class file, and we have a database context file as well. Okay, now we have the database context file, but the application doesn't know that there is a file called database context, and we need to interact with that thing, right? If we need to interact with the database context, then only we can access the table. So in order to tell the application that this is the service used for interaction, then we need to configure this in the startup file. Okay, so we have a common thing called add db context, and we'll have our database context class name. And I have used use sql server. There are many other methods for different database providers, and I'm going to pass the connection string over here. I'll show this code as well in the demo. Okay, so data source will be the server name, your database name, user id, and the password. Simple as that. Okay, so this is how you configure the database. So you need to do four things. First is you need to install your NuGet package, then your class file, and giving that class file as a table name to in the database context, and you need to configure this database context in the startup file. So that's it. We are ready with the entity framework uh, outline, and now we are getting into the demo part. Okay, so first is we are going to see a demo on diagnostics. So we can generate logs using ilogger as well, but in this 5.0 they have given two things, debug view and logging. So we'll see that now. So debug view, I'll just tell the outline of it. Debug view will give us the query kind of query, and the logging will be like logging each and every information as we do as we do it in the application insights. Okay, so that's it. So I'll just show the demo of it. Sorry. Okay, so this is a very basic application, very basic application. I just wanted to, so I have a I have created a server, S, Azure SQL server, and I am using that. I'm using that. So I have created a user table with ID and name, and I have given it already. So I don't want to add this here. So I'll just comment this. Okay, and what I'm going to do is like I have two methods here. One is I'm going to show the count of the users table, and other one is I am going to have a condition to the query, and I'm going to print that as well. Okay, so we'll see a normal I'm just going to run this out. That's it. One second. I don't, one second, I'm just going to comment this out. So I'm just going to run this, and it will give me two results. One is the user result, and the other one second, I don't want this also to run. So this is a basic console application where the user's count will be displayed. As I have shown it, the user's count is only one, so it is showing as one. And I am searching. I am having a query saying that the user name should be Niveta, and I am printing the name and the ID. So Niveta is mapped to ID one. So I have got the result, right? So this is how we actually write, right? Previously, but what this ef core 5 has given is, I'll show you. So when you have written a query, so we have a base query and we have some conditions and we are selecting that thing, right? So they have introduced a new thing called debug view, where this debug view will have a query, say the exact query that is being executed. So we'll get that exact query, and if you wanted to check it, you can go check it here and get the result. Okay, so this is the exact query that is being executed in the database. So that exact query is given in the debug view as well. And if you wanted, for example, here it is only one where condition, that's it, right? So for example, you have many inner joins, many group bys, then what you'll do, like you have to write the equivalent query in the SQL and then check whether your data is right. So So for that you can use this debug view. So this debug view will give you the query that is being executed. Okay, so if you wanted to get that query, you can even get it through uh, to query string method as well. So I'll just go back to this step and I can show you the result as well. Okay, so here I'm getting the query. Okay, so this is the to query string method where it will print the data for us. Okay, so this is the first one. Okay, this is the debug view. The next thing that I wanted to show is a log to method. So this log to method is nothing but the logging the information or the error. So like we will be having like many log levels, right? Critical, debug, error, and many other stuffs. Okay, so it is same like the application insights, but here I just wanted to know the information, like what are all the steps, what it will initiate the database context first, and then it will query execution will be done, right? So these two informations will be given in information, and it will print it in our console application. Okay, so I'm just going to execute this now. So this will give us the result. I don't want to. Okay, see, we have got the information saying that we have initialized the user context. User context is the name of the uh, database context here. So that it has initialized that, and then the info is the execution, the database command execution is given here. Okay, this is the second information that that particular log to method has given us. Okay, so that's it. These are all the two things, diagnostics as given in EF core 5.0. So I've shown this class files, right? So I'll just show. So I've installed a package. I just wanted you to know, like I've installed NuGet and the Microsoft.entity framework core and the SQL server, as I have used SQL server, and that is the first step. The second step is the class file. So I have given id as key, and I have given name as required. Okay, so this is my class file. So second step, and the third step is my database context, where I will have all my tables here. Okay, so these are all the things that this is the database context. I have mentioned DB context here as well. Okay, so next thing is our configuration, like how do we, so we'll be calling, I'll show you simple thing. Okay, I'll show this itself. Okay, so here we'll be calling our use SQL server. We are having DB context options builder, and in that particular in that particular thing, we are passing this use SQL server connection, and we are passing the connection string to it. That's it. Okay, so these are all the 4 steps that I have mentioned it in the previous slides. Okay, so this is the first demo. So we have seen 2 things in diagnostics. One is the debug view. You can get the debug view, you can get the query using to query string method. The second thing is log to method, where you will get the log level information, like information trace, warning, error. So you can get the logging details there. Okay, so this is the first demo that I wanted to show. And okay, we'll get back to uh, the demo, sorry, to the PPT. Okay, so next is the main the main thing that they have introduced in EF core 5.0 is mapping. Okay, so mapping, in this we are going to see 3 things. One is many to many, and TPH, and TPT. Okay, so many to many is like if you have any 2 tables, so I'll get into the demo so that I can show and give give you the details. So for example, let us understand, so let us think that there is another table called mapped table. Okay, So in this table, if you, for example, before 5.0, what we'll be doing is like we'll map this ID, we'll map the group ID and the, oh, sorry. So what we'll do is like we'll be mapping, we'll be having a separate table where this table will have the um, access to, okay, it would be like this, like before. For example, there is a table called user and there is a table called group, and we wanted to have many to many relationship between the two tables. What we'll have is like we'll have a third table called a group table, something grouped table, where we'll map the group ID and the user ID, we'll pass it and save it here, right? So and we'll be having the mapped table in both the table, right? Both the things, okay? So what, sorry, collection, okay? So this is how we do before. So what we are doing it now is, I just wanted to comment it out. What the CF Core 5.0 does is it itself will create a table with the names of the class, with the names of the class files, and it will create a new table and it will itself save the ID of both the tables, and it will give us the, it will explicitly, we don't have to explicitly map the table, that itself will create a new table with the IDs. Okay, I'll show that as well. 1 second. So here, okay, so what I'm going to, I have a connection string given, and connection string, and I'm having the log information, and I'm gonna get the log information as well, and I'm going to ensure, uh, I'm going to delete the DB now and recreate it, okay, so that we can see the table structure as well. We could able to see the create table statements as well. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that. So I'm gonna delete the DB and create it again. It will take some time, but okay, no problem. So sorry, I haven't changed the startup project. Okay, so now I'm going to, okay, so what I'm going to, so what this what is that, ensure delete does is, this ensure delete async will alter the table, that will delete the table, that will drop the database and recreate it again. Okay, so this is now dropping the database. Okay, you could able to see the statement, right? Yeah, now this will drop, it will take time. So when you are using this ensure deleted and ensure created, make sure uh, it will actually create it in general purpose. Okay, so general purpose, it will create it as a general purpose DB. So make sure once you do this demo, make sure you delete the resource in your Azure, because I haven't done that before, and I've lost like 10,000. So it will drop the database and create it again. It will take time, and it has done. So I just wanted to show you that, and then we'll get into the code. Okay, so initially what is being happened is like it is dropping the table. 1 second. For initially it dropped the table, and then the database is created. Okay, once the database is created, it will create the tables. So we have two tables called groups, so with the ID and the name, uh, and the ID is the primary key, and we have users tables, the same ID and name, and primary key as ID. Okay, so here it itself, the EF core itself has created a new table called group user, where this will be having the group's ID and the user's ID mapped here, and it will itself get the data to it. Okay, so it will itself create a index to it as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now I'm just going to add a new user and a group as well. Okay, so I'm gonna add it. Okay, so till now, till this add range, it didn't add. Okay, so I'll show you as I show you that as well. Okay, so if you see, there are three tables: groups, group user, and users. So I'm just going to get that thing. So there is no data yet, right? Okay, so once I execute this save changes method, then only this context will update the database. Okay, so then only it updates the database. Now if you go and see the same table, it will be updated. Okay, so that save changes method is the one that uh, detects the change and writes them to the database. So what I'm going to do now is I am just going to have a condition where groups the group with the name football has to be shown here. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. So we have two users uh, here, because we have introduced Jane and John, and we have marked both of them into the football team, and I am filtering only the football group alone. So I'll be getting both the users. So that's it. So we have got two users name as well. Okay, so we have got the query as well. If you want, you can go check it out. Okay, so this GOID. Okay, I don't think this will work. We have passed the user ID, right? Group ID is one. That is right. One second. So this is a query that is going to get executed here. One second, I have done something wrong. Yeah. So this has given the data, right? Okay, the same query, uh, the debugged view has given, and the same query is being executed in the DB as well. Okay, we have got the result also. So this is the one uh, many to many relationship is about. So what it does is it creates a new table with the class names, and sorry, with the class names, and it will map the group ID and the group name. One second, I'll show that as well. See, so it itself mapped the group ID and the user ID in the mapped table. So it explicitly, we don't have to explicitly mention, it itself will create a join table and give us the result. Okay, so this is how the many to many relationship works. The next thing that I wanted to show is table per hierarchy. So before we get into table per hierarchy, I just wanted to tell you like how it works. So I am just going to close this main method. This also. So let us let us see only the class file now. So here we have user class, an external user class inherited from the user, and a time restricted user class inherited the user class, and group class. Okay, so we have four classes over here, and we have two classes. In that, we have two classes inherited from the super class. Okay, so what this table per hierarchy does is it will actually this will actually create an user table and a group table, and in that user table it will have all the properties of the base class as well. Okay, so the hierarchy is the interface class. Okay, the hierarchy is based on the super class, and the, like you can say it like the hierarchy is based on the one second The hierarchy is based on the inheritance, and it will map all the .NET types to a single database. That is what I'm telling it. Okay, so it will create a user table, a group table. The user table will have the properties of external user and the time restricted user. So I'm just gonna run this. So we'll see what all the tables are being created. So I don't want to close this. Okay, so in this I have the same deleted ensure deleted async method, so that I can use the same database, and I wanted to show you the table creation as well. Okay, so I have the same code here, but still thing I wanted to show is uh, one second, I don't want this, sorry. So now it is through hierarchy. So it will delete the database. Now it has deleted the database, and it will create it again. We'll see uh, whether this is there. It won't be there. It will take time. So we don't have any log to method here, so I'll add that as well. Okay, so that we can see the right line, and I'm going to have the information. Okay, so I'm just gonna run this now. Sorry, it would have created it. Okay, there is no table here. Okay, so this will drop the table, and this will say that there is no table. This will throw us. Okay, it didn't say. So now it is going to create a database named ef sample db, and it will create the table as well. So now as far as I said before, we'll be having two tables called the user table, uh, the group table, and in that user table, we'll be having all the properties of the base class as well. Okay, so we'll see that. We'll see whether it works like that. So this will create the table. It takes a bit of time. It will take a lot of time. This will create now. Yeah, before that I just wanted to show you the table structure. So initially what this does is like it dropped the database, and then it created the database again. Once that is done, we are having a table called group, okay, with the id and the name, and we are having a users table where we are having id, name, and these are all the properties of the base class, like discriminator, external company, start time and end time are the properties of the base class. If you see here, so see, external company, start time and end time are the base class properties. So apart from the base class properties, we have one more property called discriminated, where this this discriminator property will tell us whether the data is from the external user or from the time restricted user. We need to know like with what type of user that are entering into the database, right? So that discriminator will tell us whether it is an external user or the time restricted user or the user itself. Okay, so that will tell us. So they have added one more property with the with the normal properties, and we and many to many relationship will give us the another one mapped table, right? So same way groups id and the users id are mapped in the separate table. So this is how the table structures are. Okay, now I'm going to run this out. So this will give us the result. Okay, the result here is John. So what this does is, we'll see. Okay, so we have got the query here, the insert statements, the select statement before the insert statements, and the final execution here. Okay, so what exactly, what condition that I have given here is, so I am just setting it as external it should be the query that I'm giving is, I wanted an external users data where the external company is company. Okay, so if you see, I have added a user uh, data and an external user data. So now what I want is, like, I want an external user where the external company is company. Okay, I'm just getting that. Okay, so for that query, for that, if you see, okay, for that, if you see, it is getting all the properties of that external company, and I'm having a where query saying that external company is company. But the other property is, I want the user to be, I want user to be an external user, not the time restricted user. So I'll just go and check. Sorry, I'll just go and share and I'll get the name John. Okay, so if you see the table structure, if you see the table structure here, so it will have all the properties: id, name, discriminated, external company. So see, so in the discriminator it says that Jane is from the user thing. Yes, Jane is from the user class. Okay, but the John is from the external user class. So this discriminated column will ensure from where, from what class it is from. Okay, so this is the tph, table per hierarchy, where the hierarchy is based on the inheritance. Okay, so the inherited properties will also be under the superclass properties. Okay, under the single database table. So what now I'm going to do is, I don't want this to be in a single class, is in a single table. So as you all know, when there is so much of data, or when there is so much of properties to each and every class, then we can't put them all in a single table. That is not good, that is not a good idea, right? So we wanted to have all the three classes in three different tables. So what we'll do is, like, when you are telling that there is an entity called external user, we need to tell them, I just wanted this external user to be in a separate table. I want that to be in a table format, not in the same table that comes, same table as the super. I don't want these properties to be in the superclass table itself. So what I'll do is, I'll tell them that I wanted this external user class to have a separate table. So I'm just making it two table method, and I am passing the table's name as well. Okay. So this TPT is table per type. So for each and every .NET type will have a date, will have a table. Okay. So now if I run the same thing, we could able to see 5 tables: user table, group table, and the mapped table, user group table. The other one is the external user and the time restricted user, and we'll be having 5 different tables now. Okay, it will delete and create. I'll show the comments that has executed. This will take a little bit of time. So if you have any queries, you can post it in the YouTube channel, or You can contact me in my LinkedIn as well as in Twitter. This will take a little bit of time as we are deleting and then creating it, right? So in the meantime, I just wanted to show how to create a SQL database. Many of them would know, but still, okay, this has come. Okay, this has created the DB. This has created the tables as well. So I will start with it. Okay, so now we are dropping the table and sorry, we are dropping the database and creating the database. So once the database is created, we are having a table called group and a table called user, where the user will have only it properties, only the user's property id and the name. And we have external users where it will have it own properties. And the group user is the mapped table where it will have the group id and the user id. And the other table is called time restricted user, where this will have its own property. Okay, its own property it will be having. Okay, so now we have 5 different tables and we are going to execute the query as well. Okay, now it got executed and I've got the same result, but still we have 5 different tables. Okay, we could see the query as well. It would be really small, only inner joins. Okay, so for example, if you see here, we are having a select statement, and we are having a where condition, and we are saying it directly that the discriminator should be an external user, and we are having one more condition. But when it comes to different tables, then we'll use the inner joins, right? So I am just having a users table and I'm joining it with the external users table, and I am getting the external users data as well. So this will give us the same thing. Okay, so I'll show you the two comments. Okay, sorry. Okay, this will be deleted. This would have been deleted already, right? So okay, so the data is the external company should be company is the condition. So we have got John as the result. So here if you see, we would be having 5 different tables. So group, external user, groups, group user, time restricted user, and the user table. Okay, so this is what the TPT is. So TPH is based on the inheritance hierarchy. Table per type is like for each and every .NET type you'll have a different data, for you'll have the different table. Okay, so for that you need to mention your entity, and you need to tell them that I wanted this to be in a different tables by using the two table method. You have many other as well. So for example, you can mention it like should be a table. Okay, you can mention it like table here as well, something like that. I've forgotten like what it will come, but you can mention it on top of the class name as well. Okay, so that's it on mapping. So we have so the demo is all about diagnostic and mapping. So we have seen the first demo is on uh, debug view and log2 method. The second demo is on many to many relationship, where you will have two classes and you will create a relationship between those two, many to many relationship without explicitly creating a new table, new class file. And the last one is table per hierarchy. Table per hierarchy is based on your .NET inheritance hierarchy, and it will put all the subclass properties into a single table, uh, with the superclass properties. And table per type is like we'll map each and every .NET type, each and every class to a single database, to a different databases. Okay, so as I said, we need to use two table method, or you can mention that particular class to be a separate table, then you need to mention it on top with the data annotation. Okay, so that is all about the demo. And I'll post this um I'll post this demo in GitHub, and I'll share it in the YouTube channel, maybe in some time. And I'll add some more references to it. And thanks for joining. And please be safe.
Hey Niveda, it was a wonderful session. Really learned a lot of things in this.
Mm,
At least from the debugging thing where we go and see the query from the
uh,
context. That's a pretty cool feature, you know.
yes.
And yeah, the other guy who asked this question, this is one of
Okay.
the reason. I mean, where, there was a couple of people that were asking whether to go ahead with the EF core or Dapper or with the ADO.NET, and these are the things which help us to take the decision. Like if you have two
Uh,
three tables and we are using
mm,
EF core, and we can
mm,
see what is the query it is giving, and we
mm,
go and run that and see the execution plan, I mean the static execution plan and the runtime execution plan, see how
exactly.
many milliseconds, how many milliseconds it is taking, then we can
Mm,
take a call whether to use the ADO.NET or EF core. If EF core
yes.
is having a query which is taking less milliseconds, better we can
Mm,
stick it. I mean, there'll be a lot of
mm,
things. Correct me if I'm wrong. See, you
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
four tables. You have four
Mm,
tables, and we are joining four different tables,
exactly. Mm,
and you have 10 million records in each table. So totally,
mm,
you're retrieving one or two records from this 10 million records.
mm.
So the
Then so many in the
DBA,
joints.
DBA
Mm,
exactly, and also DBAs and other people, they will always continuously watch for the performance, and they will update the indexes
mm,
on all those columns. So when you
mm,
have indexes in place, whether it is 10 million records or 20 million records, the
mm.
query will execute fast because you already indexed it.
Yes.
Okay, so
Mm,
I'm thinking it might not impacting even if you use EF core or Dapper or entity frame
radio dot net.
ADO.NET, ADO.NET,
Mm,
it should perform pretty quick. I mean, you will
mm.
have the issue if you are not writing the proper join, and you will have the issue
Exactly.
if exactly, isn't it? If you don't have the proper indexes, if you don't have the
Mm,
proper indexes in place, and you have
mm,
millions of records, then
mm,
obviously you're going to face the issue no matter you go it with the ADO.NET or Dapper or EF core. I mean, it's a combination of all these technologies and different minds. I mean,
mm.
the database
Based
administrator
on the
should be there,
data,
the
we can
architect.
go like. Mm,
Exactly. Okay, that's
mm,
that's what I told them. I said that, I mean, I might not be wrong. Sorry, I might
mm,
not be right. But I told
mm,
some of the data points like you should do
mm,
this indexes, or you should check that how many tables you are joining, and then do a
mm,
feasibility study.
mm,
Not based on some documentation. I will see that bulleted point A B C matches. I like
mm.
this. I will go ahead with this technology. That might backfire. We need to do a proper
POC.
investigation exactly
Mm,
before doing a POC with that too with a prime use case, not a
mm.
simple small use case. Do a POC and dust your hands. That will
Yes.
backfire us. Do a POC. Write a small sample for the table
Mm,
which has got hundreds or millions of records, and bring the content from that table, complex query, see the
mm,
performance, then take up a decision. I mean, when it is working for the topmost query, definitely it
mm.
will be good for rest of the things.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's really wonderful, Niveda, discussing all these things, and hope users will also have enjoyed and learned a lot of things. And thank you so much.
Thanks.
Stay safe,
Thanks,
folks.
Swami, for the opportunity.
So thanks, Niveda. Really enjoyed learning a lot of things. So everyone, stay safe. Have a good rest of the weekend. Good night. Bye, Niveda.